Hello students, my name is Paulette Stevenson, your English teacher again. I wanted to take some time in this video to go over the requirements in our course. Before I continue on, however, I want to make a note that I am teaching 3 formats of this online course. So I'm teaching some students that start in Spring A, some students that start Spring B, and then some students that start Spring C. So the A session courses obviously start at the beginning of the semester. The B session courses start after spring break, and then the C session courses run throughout the semester. There's very little difference in what's required in the courses. In fact, there's none. The difference being is when it's required, so what the due dates are and over what time frame. So obviously the C session class, because it takes the entire 16 weeks, they're going to have a lot more time to complete the papers, whereas the A session and the B session classes, the 7.5-week courses, we take 16 weeks of material and instruction and fit it into those 7.5 weeks. So all of your time frames are much more truncated. So if you run across information in this video or in other videos that talk about this being an accelerated course or this being an A session course or a B session course, and you're not in the A session or the B session course, just keep in mind to kind of overlook that information. So our course is run through Schoology. It is not run through Blackboard. You should have gotten that information, and because you have the syllabus, I'm assuming that you have signed up for the course so that we're good there, but we will not be using Blackboard. Our course home is Schoology. We will also be using YouTube a little bit. You have been given through me a course YouTube channel so that you don't have to put anything out there in the world with your face and your name on it that stays for life. Every semester I purge these videos that you've created because they're more discussion based so that you don't have to worry about your online profile. And we'll get to what that's used for in a moment. So again, I'm Paulette Stevenson. I am teaching completely online this semester, so I hold an office in the English department at Arizona State University Tempe campus. However, I will not be there on a regular basis. So the way that you can meet me in office hours is through the internet. What I normally have students do is they either do a sort of a text chat or a video call with me. In order to set those up, send me an email and say, hey, Professor Stevenson, I'd like to meet you. I'd like to do a Google Hangout with you on Wednesday at, 10. And after that, I say, great, I will set that up and I'll send you a link. The times listed right there, the 10 to 12 Wednesday and Friday, those are the times when I'm most available. However, if you can't make it to a video call at those times, I can also meet you at other times. So those times in some way are really arbitrary. They give you a good space for you to say, oh, I know Professor Stevenson's available during those times, so I can make a suggestion about doing a video call during those times. So keep that in mind. The best way to contact me is via email. If you have questions about the course or you have questions about your paper or you have any questions, you send me an email. And then, again, we can determine if you need to meet afterwards. For this class, you need this book. It's called Naming What We Know. It is a very cheap and simple book. It's got a lot of good stuff, what the majority of the stuff that we'll be using are these essays about writing. You can buy the e-book or you can buy the paperback version. They are both very affordable. And it's called Naming What We Know, and it's called the Classroom Edition. So the link provided on the syllabus takes you right there if you click on that picture. In terms of other requirements, you're going to need a Schoology account. So this isn't something that ASU signs you up for, like Blackboard. This is something different. So you do have to sign up with it yourself. and you have to create an account and you have to have access to your password. You also need access to all the ASU stuff. The ASU Write, Google Docs. We will be using Google Docs pretty heavily, but you have to use the ASU version, so the one that's password protected through your ASU. You'll need your ASU email account. You've got to check that daily. Daily access to a computer and the internet. If you're in the 7.5-week course, please know that we move very swiftly and that you will almost be on the web, on our course, almost daily, okay? A webcam or a recording device, I haven't had any issues in the past with students. You can use your phone, you can use the built-in camera on your computer. I've had students who don't want to project themselves, so what they do is they do a screen recording through QuickTime, which is actually what I'm using, or some other software on your computer, which is totally okay if you don't want to project yourself. Maybe you want to project a picture, maybe you make like a little bit of a PowerPoint, and we'll talk about what that's used for. We are also viewing a documentary called The 13th on Netflix. So I'm asking that you have access to Netflix just for this one documentary. If this is a crazy issue, like if you have no access and you don't know anybody that you can borrow their Netflix password for a day, or you don't want to sign up for the free trial just for this class, you can send me an email and we can discuss. I really just want you to watch this one documentary. So it's called The 13th. So our course has a lot of different work in it. I want to go over what is in it. So this is the second page of the syllabus. Right here, descriptions of project and work. These are all the things that are due in our course. You have 3 major papers. You have discussions. There are 10 of them in our course. There's also a cyber cafe, which is, it's a discussion board that asks you to, everyone's required to do it. You get 1 point for doing it, which is 1 percentage point. It's a space in the class where you can ask questions of other classmates. So I encourage you all that if you have a question that is general for the entire course, like, hey, I'm having trouble locating X, or hey, when it says this in the assignment sheet, what does it mean? Or maybe you overlook something in the assignment sheet and you're like, hey, how long does paper number 1 need to be, right? Put that on the Cyber Cafe. You get credit for participating in it. And also I'd like you to check it pretty regularly, because not only are you supposed to ask questions, but also answer questions on the Cyber Cafe. So maybe you completely understand the course and you don't have any issues with it, but go on there, check in there, answer questions for people. This is like in a regular classroom, you would have that space before or after class, or maybe during class, or during, we're moving around, moving desks, getting into groups. You'd have that space to ask your classmates questions about the class. Like, hey, how long is paper number 1 supposed to be? And then the other person says, oh yeah, on the assignment sheet it says X pages or whatever, right? You don't have that opportunity in an online course, and this is kind of your space. So it's the Cyber Cafe, and it's in the, it's under the Start Here folder. And you would just, to ask a question, you would write it here, and to answer it, you would reply. So I want you to ask and answer questions, right? You get 1 percentage point. If you never participate on the Cyber Cafe, at the end of the semester, I can't give you credit for it. Now, if a question goes unanswered for 24 hours, I will chime in and answer that question so that there's not mass confusion on the discussion boards. Also, if it's a personal question, so I'm encouraging you to use the Cyber Cafe for really general questions, because most of the time you have a question that I'll get, the same question from like 10 people, and I am just answering them via email, one after another. But most of the time, the question about should we have a bibliography on this is easily answered by another classmate or myself, and then everyone can see it so that you guys get information for each other and from each other and then from me. Now, if you have a personal question like, hey, what about my grade here? Or, what do you mean by this feedback, Professor Stevenson? Send me that email. This is not to discourage you from emailing me. However, this is to encourage the type of sort of off-topic classroom discussions on the Cyber Cafe. Alternatively, I have had students in the past schedule to meet up through the Cyber Cafe to discuss the class, to borrow each other's books and things like that. So it's fine if you get off topic too. Again, this is really your space. For each paper, you will put together a rough draft. You will also review at least 2 people's papers and provide them feedback. After you read through your feedback, you're going to put together a revision plan for each of these papers. You're going to turn in the major paper, and then you're going to reflect on that. There's a little reflection discussion afterwards. So that's kind of how we move through that. So you'll spend I don't want to get ahead of myself. At the end of the semester, you'll put together 2 things that serve as the final of this class: a digication portfolio and a final reflection. So if you look at the grade breakdown, it looks something like this. All the major projects are worth 20%. The discussion boards are also worth 20%. The rough drafts and the peer reviews are worth 9%. So I give you each 2 points for each rough draft, and I give you 1 point for the peer reviews in total. The Cyber Cafe, 1 percentage point all semester. Again, students who don't participate on this, I can't help you by giving you credit if you don't participate. The final reflection is worth 3%, 3 points. Digication portfolio, 1%. Each paper you'll put together a revision plan, and then each paper you'll put together its own reflection. Okay? So pretty simple stuff. That is what's required of you. That is the work that's required of you. You're going to want to watch, I recorded a separate video on discussions. There's an FAQ right here that kind of explains these. I've recorded a separate video on discussions because this is so much of the other work of this class. The major work is putting together the papers, but the everyday work are these discussions. And each week you'll have each discussion, we have 10 of them, you'll have a different role. So make sure you watch that video. Okay? So looking down, I want to take a look at the syllabus, how everything works, right? This is an A session syllabus, so we move pretty quickly. But our class is structured paper to paper. So we start day 1 kind of thinking about ideas and thinking about concepts and thinking about skill sets that you'll need for paper number 1. You work through those in the discussions. So you go through discussion 1, discussion 2, discussion 3. You put together a rough draft. You peer review each other's papers. Once you have gotten your peer reviews back, you put together a revision plan that basically says this is what I'm going to do to make my essay better. And then you put together a final. With the final, you also turn in a reflection where you're like, hey, this is what I loved about this paper. This is what I hated about this paper. This is what I did well on. This is what I'll need to improve on next time. This is what I'll take away from this paper. And that is paper 1. Even our Schoology site, so that's the way that this is set up. Our materials look like this. So all of this is in these different folders. Start here, right? You're going through all of that. This is all of the stuff that you need to start this class. Okay, so the syllabus, the introduction videos, the Cyber Cafe, the helps with these different technologies, Google Docs, Schoology, the discussion schedule, the YouTube page instructions, the introductions. All of that is in the Start Here folder. And then after that, right, paper 1, we go through this entire folder. Some of the stuff is pretty easily, some of the stuff is assigned on the syllabus, like read this and do this. Some of the stuff isn't. Videos to help with paper 1. I don't say on the syllabus, watch all these videos, but I'm encouraging you to do all this, right? It's not supplemental, it's required information. So it helps you with rhetorical analysis. It helps you with ethos, pathos, logos. It helps you with the rhetorical situation. It helps you with completing your rhetorical analysis for paper number 1. The same thing, the other things in these are sample papers, right? Rough drafts. This is the folder where you turn in the rough drafts. Peer review instruction. Here's a document that says this is how you do peer review. Rubric. This is how I grade it, right? Here's where you're going to put your revision plan for paper number 1. Here's where you post your final for paper number 1. And here's where you post your reflection for paper number 1. So everything that has to do with paper number 1 is in here. Okay. The other thing, so it's the same for paper number 2 and paper number 3, although those aren't available for you. And then at the end of the semester, there's final reflection, digitation, and there's an extra credit discussion board. And all of that stuff is in there too. The other place is the discussions. So I linked the discussion schedule here. So you'll get to see, so it's also on the start here, but there's another link there. These are all the discussions. Discussion 1, right? If you're a leader, you start it off. You record your video on YouTube through our course YouTube channel, and then you post the link here, and then you go throughout. Now, our course is not self-paced, okay? So you can't decide, I'm going to go through and do all the discussions. You just can't. The most you could do is you could see when you're a leader, and you could do those. And that's twice during the semester. You could not, however, do the replies throughout. So it's meant to happen on schedule, and it's meant to happen as kind of a conversation. That's why we have these different roles. So this is what our course looks like. This is our Schoology page. So yeah, I am looking forward to this course. And again, post any questions, especially right now, after you've read through the syllabus, after you've watched all the videos. The worst learning curve in an online course is actually understanding when you have to do it and how you have to do it and where you have to do it and things like that. So navigating the course in any online course, regardless of how simple I've tried to make it, can be kind of tough. If you have any questions at this point, start by posting them in the Cyber Cafe. So without further ado, like I said, continue to watch the rest of the things, and good luck.